All right, so we are back with another professional water cooler chat. And Joy, I've been having these conversations since March of 2020 with people that I, might have crossed paths with in a conference or perhaps a co-working space. And long story short, so many people have said that they've stopped by these water cooler chats and start to network on their own, just going to different conversations, and reaching out to people, because that's always my call to action, is that I screen people for friendliness and approachability. So that means if you see me, interviewing someone, that means you can go up to them and, say hello and connect. And they're kind of using this as their networking thing. So Joy, please introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm happy to. And you're speaking my language. I love the idea of people just networking and meeting each other and finding ways to either connect, leverage your network, and just like support one another. Um, I spend a lot of my time, I have a health IT consultancy where I help clinicians navigate through value-based care, which is essentially my day job. And passion project has been taking on podcasting and basically really making it my mission to amplify, celebrate, and connect the women who work in healthcare and health IT. So we call it Hit Like a Girl Pod, which is fun. And I believe, if my count is correct, I think I just recorded like our 150th episode recently.
Awesome, awesome. Congratulations on that. Wow. So, and we're going to dig right into this because that's sort of like why we're actually here to talk about that. Typically, sometimes these conversations don't necessarily have a theme, but this one sort of does. The digital front door. So, a little context to you and the people who are listening. I'm a registered nurse by trade. Recently started working on a very interesting project that has gotten me knee, waist, neck deep into consumer insights. And it really plays into my desire for a more human focused everything, whether it's a healthcare experience, shopping experience, whenever there's a processes that leave humans out of it, things tend not to go well for anyone. And a lot of people in healthcare, they are, for various reasons, there's more of an effort to have a consumer first version of healthcare. And the phrase that they're using, which doesn't necessarily have a specific definition, is the digital front door. And when you looked up that term, um, I'm not talking to you specifically. I'm talking to the audience because I'm speaking to the choir. But for those who are listening, if you looked up the digital front door in 2017, there was a podcast episode, I think, talking about that 2016. And back then, it's not all that long ago, but back then, digital front door was like SEO and physician ratings. And now when we have that conversation, it's talking about AI supported symptom checking that's linked to online scheduling, all throughout frictionless payments. So Joy, you've had Rollins said hello. Okay, hey there, Rollins. And if you're joining, feel free to leave comments. If you have questions, feel free to leave them here. So Joy, you've been talking to amazing women who've been touching all parts of the digital front door. And I'd like for you to tell us more about it. Well, one, what is your definition of it? And there's no definition specific, but I
Yeah.
shared my personal, I don't know if I did, but yeah, what's your personal definition of
So
the digital front
I,
door?
I think I'm going to adopt the definition that I learned recently, like as recent as last week. I had the opportunity to interview a woman from the Department of Health and Human Services. Her name is April Smith-Hirak, and she's responsible for the New York, New Jersey, Virgin Island, and Puerto Rico region. So she brought up a term that really resonated with me, and it had a lot to do with digital empathy. And so I keep having conversations with women about either technologies, products, or services that their intention is to meet people where they are, right? So whether that means if they like to be communicated through a text message or a call, or how they engage in your website, like that part of digital front door is something that comes up, like how can we make it easier for people to get access and connected to the services and things that would improve their own health or their family's outcomes. But the concept of digital empathy was something that really stuck with me, kind of because it really brought in the focus of making sure that we identify and empathize with people that might not actually have access to phones or computers or tablets. And so even like being empathetic to those who like understanding that it's even like a privilege to have a digital front door was something that I was like, oh wow, like that we kind of forget that, you know, people in rural areas, you know, they definitely are struggling with needing as much access physically to hospital and medical settings. That, you know, how can we reach them? And I mean, I guess I'll stop there and maybe like get your feedback on just that idea. But like, I don't have like a succinct answer other
Yeah.
than, you know, like there's a lot of ways to meet people, and like
Mhm.
the concept of meeting people where they are is there's no cookie cutter answer for that either.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. Digital empathy. That's a new one for me too. So definitely will take a look at that episode. And for for me, when I think of the digital front door, I really think of it more so as a conversation, more so than a strategy. And as I mentioned, a conversation that covers everything from, you know, I think I have a symptom to I have a symptom, now what? To all the touch points that lead people through completion of that instance of care, and that leads to another. So what I love about the variety of people that you've interviewed is like I feel like you've interviewed people who touch various aspects of all of those micro moments. Um, Not asking for favorites, but what are some are there ones that kind of stand out when I mention that? Because, one, the interesting thing is that, Marlon says digital empathy is a cool term, never heard of it. Thanks, Joy. Yeah, same. One of the things that I really like about that is I'm a connector. I'm a super connector. I love connecting with other people. And the interesting thing about this, is that there isn't a one vendor solution. There isn't like one person that will have the answer to everything that will accomplish you know, this whole conversation. So I love the fact that you've talked to lots of different people who solve lots of different things within this effort of having a more empathetic, human focused experience. And my vantage point is a little slanted. I definitely believe that now in 2021, you can have the human patient consumer voice at every decision turn. And so I feel like there's a point where organizations who decide not to do that, that will be a stark difference. But what are some people who are really seem to be doing it right as of now? Things change all the time, but that kind of catch your eye, that you're like, yes, definitely take a look at this episode or so and so. Yeah.
So I've been on like an interviewing like frenzy lately, and my new episodes will be coming out in, you know, the new year, starting in January. But so recently I've had a bit of focus. I've been intentional about having a focus on maternal like morbidity and mortality rates. I've also been focusing on femtech and also on DEI, like diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that is kind of one of the themes of a lot of the conversations that I've been having. There's two products and slash services like women founders that their approach has really stuck with me. And one of them service called, it's a woman named Tina Beilinson, and she is the founder of an organization called Starling. And you had mentioned earlier that you feel like a connector, and we sort of talked about like, what is Starling? What does that even mean, right? And it's a company named after a bird that has like a small community of 7 or so that somehow like they all kind of flock together and lean on each other for support. And the service that that she provides is like doulas for new parents. And so a virtual doula, like a digital health, so that they not only have access to like coaches and people that can support them through their pregnancy and postpartum, as well as, you know, a small group of women. They actually like connect 7 people together on their journey and make sure that they have support network, you know, and people that they can check in with on a regular basis. Because one thing that has come up, especially with the pandemic, is an increase of depression, anxiety, mental, health issues, where people are experiencing loneliness, or, not able to do the activities that they would normally be able to engage in. So kind of an addressing of that. I really liked her approach. And so I'll say that that was one conversation. Another one is related, and it has to do with women who are trying to conceive and struggle with that. So the CEO of this organization, her name is Amy Divaraniya. I hope I get that right. But her organization has to do, it's called Oova, OOVA. And it's a technology for women to be able to, essentially like a pee stick. Instead of having a pregnancy test, they basically pee on a stick, and it identifies their hormone levels so that they can figure out where they are in their ovulation cycle, so that if they're trying to get pregnant, it kind of helps them understand, okay, where exactly are they? And they're like, okay, your egg dropped yesterday. Now it's like takes the guesswork out of trying. But the cool part about it, it's not just like, okay, you're holding on to a pee stick, right? Like, that's my layman's terms for it. But it's also connected to an app on the phone, where the users of this actually get to identify their clinicians, and the results get sent over to the doctor. And so when they go in to, see their healthcare team, they have data to review together and to come up with a plan that is, more relevant for them as individuals, and for their couple, for them as new parents or parents to be. And that's something like I never even heard of. So apparently, like, one of the struggles of trying to get pregnant is not knowing, like your estrogen or progesterone or some other types of levels, and they're able to identify that. And so, it comes with like one little stick with like 15 different refills, so that people can, be checking on a regular basis. And it just seems like, at least a lot of feedback I've heard of that people who are trying and are struggling trying, that it just becomes a process that's not particularly fun. It's really stressful and hard. And this kind of makes it a little bit easier for folks. So that's my answer.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to dissect why I love that so much on so many different levels. So I feel as though, and so a quick question, and I can go back and listen to the episode, and I'm going to actually listen to this again and get the names and write them down so we can tag folks so people can go back and listen to these specific ones. But this last one that you talked about, is this like direct to consumer situation where people
Yes.
can?
Yes, so people can go, actually the website is Oova.life. So OOVA .life. And so it's basically fertility technology.
Yes.
And so, yeah, and whether or not it's something that is prescribed or not, a consumer can go access it, and then basically identify their care team who they want to share that information with. And it just is like helps them give the data to have, to get them farther along their goal, like closer to their goals.
So for all of the listeners who are stopping by, thank you for joining the Professional Water Cooler Chat. We are here with Joy, and we're talking about the digital front door, which really is an entry point to, or an entry point, or a conversation around an entry point to having people meet their wellness goals, and all that that can include. And we are in a time where we are in a consumer focused, consumer driven, consumer initiated world. We were already going there, and the events of 2020 really, I feel like, pushed us over that, because if there was like some hesitancy around, giving consumers the choice to purchase their own testing for something, oh my goodness. Oh my
Right.
goodness, like that sort of went out the window. I even saw something from like LabCorp, like messaging or wording around consumer initiated testing. I think it might be a new branch or a new something. I probably need to do a little bit more research, but that focus, or that name, consumer led testing, I thought was interesting. And we're not saying that people's Google search trumps people's medical degrees or anything like that. We're just in a time where the healthcare consumer is just savvy, they've
Mhm.
done their research. They've one, they know how to research. They've done their research. They found out that there's like information that they need to use to partner with a medical provider. They're not just taking this information and going on their way, and they might, but they're taking this information and the founder had the savvy to know, I want to equip somebody with information and also equip them with a healthcare provider who also have access to the same information. This is like literally, I just love this on so many levels because so many organizations are, I guess, on different paces, realizing that they need to cater to the needs of the consumer, or else. I'm not ancient. I'm not ancient. I don't feel like I'm ancient. And I also remember Blockbuster. And
Yeah,
I also
same.
remember Borders. And, they were also not so quick to understand the need to keep the consumer voice in the middle of decisions. And what I'm seeing in healthcare, whether it's literally Amazon and Walmart and even CrossFit, is offering a primary care solution. It's just really interesting to see. And, you mentioned too about there are people like in rural areas who might not have access to digital tech like others might. Um, is it Dollar Tree or Dollar Store? I always get it confused. But Dollar Tree, Dollar Store.
One of them.
Yeah, I want to say dollar store, but any case, they're, having primary care options or discussing. And in fact, I'm going to leave the link if I can find it. Um, and somebody was like mentioning like that's odd, that's different. But somebody had educated me. It's like, you know what, that store is in so many rural areas
Mhm.
that's, if that could be like that is amazing footprint that, maybe it might not make sense for a small provider practice to set up shop there.
Yeah.
But did you have a thought on that?
Yeah, actually, that brings up, and it's not from an interview that I've had, but just a conversation. Like, what certain companies, like Best Buy. I'm pretty sure Best Buy is getting into health, and like my wheels have been turning about like how that would make sense. They have a geek squad, so anybody who has any sort of technical issues with their computer or whatever, they have trusted people who can support them in getting that fixed. And how cool, I think what they're in, I mean, I'm guessing, this is guesswork, but I would imagine the direction that they're going in is having something similar for health. That, like, okay, they are a trusted, resource. And if they were in a place that, I mean, something that I started thinking about is like, what if they had like classes for the community that they were putting, on their big screen TVs, so that as people are shopping, they're also getting educated, with something that might be relevant. I mean, they have an opportunity to do something like that, where because their footprint is so big and that they are all over the country.
When you said classes, at first I was thinking classes related to signing up for your patient portal,
Sure.
accessing that. But any case, but no, yeah, that's cool. So I'm actually going to try to find the link to the Best Buy news as well. But um, wow, 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 so many different possibilities, and it's just I feel like it's an exciting time because in the past, again, not all that long ago past, there people and they might still say that when someone had an innovative idea inside of the healthcare system, they would be met with, "Oh, well, this is how we've always done things." But,
Mhm.
literally, like, that's going away now that
It,
these other models are literally moving into, um, the healthcare system is like, these are like other options. And I was actually just talking to somebody who said that
yeah.
they canceled or switched their provider because the provider didn't communicate with them via email and forced them to use the fax machine to send them information and had no plans of switching to something more consumer friendly, and so they left. And I think a lot of healthcare systems are starting to realize that, we're not necessarily just competing with the hospital system down the street anymore. I think Mayo Clinic they have like initiative and had a goal of being like, coming to a neighborhood near you. I'm misquoting that horribly. And if you're with Mayo and stopping by, feel free to educate me on what you said. But it was like pretty much it's like the barriers, I feel like some people, I don't know, I feel like the barriers are dropping to how people are accessing care, such that, how we've always done things is like no longer. I don't think it's a thing. I think it's over.
Yeah. I like, to your point, I love the idea that it's no longer an excuse to say like we've never done it before, because that's that's not a good enough reason to not try, right? And there's a couple other things that show up for me just in this conversation. One has to do with, the timing of education. To your point about like not going electronic, like people definitely need access to their records. They need to be able to have complete information of their, of the lifetime of their health. And it needs to be able to be transportable and interoperable. You like follow them wherever they're going. There was one conversation that I had with a woman who's works for a company called Xealth, Xealth, and they are an organization that they basically, it's more than just data analytics, but they help inform education and communication with people. And I'll use the example of people coming in for maternity reasons, right? And they will track, okay, the timing of the patient's visit, the timing of their pregnancy, how far along they are, like what type of educational resources that they need access to. But then this very important detail that if somebody has a miscarriage or if the baby is no longer there, that they make sure to stop sending that information. Because just because somebody has been triggered that, they are along that journey doesn't necessarily mean they complete that journey. And how painful it can be for people to keep receiving information and education on something that's no longer part of their current journey. And so that's kind of another aspect of the digital empathy that I think is really smart. And I was really impressed by the level of just sophistication that they have built in, because that's just a small example, and it kind of just the tip of the iceberg of what they're able to do and the thoughtfulness that they put in to their communication with patients.
you know um and working in consumer insights, we work with people who are doing customer persona journey maps. And when you share like that part of the journey, like how many organizations are who claim to serve women, are considering like that whole holistic journey, and how it might look for different families. And wow, that's impressive. That's pretty amazing too that they've done that. So and now I have like a ton of questions for that person, so I'm going to be like spamming all the people that you mentioned. You might want to warn them ahead of time, but no, I'm serious. I'm going to tag them because I have questions for all of them. Slash, I'll be listening to those episodes.
Good.
Thank you so much for joining. I could go on and on talking. I try to keep these to 20 minutes. We're at 23. And how can people continue the conversation with you? Where's the best place to connect with you? And yeah.
Yeah, well, we are on all the socials. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. You can go to our website. It's hitlikeagirlpod.com. And we are right now we're sharing our platform, which is really nice. So we have guest hosts and guest hosts that are interviewing their lady boss crushes. But we'll be starting with new episodes where I'm the host in the new year. So yeah, we're gonna have bingeable content. And we already do have bingeable content.
Sounds good. All right. So, for those who joined, again, these are professional water cooler chats that I've been hosting. I'm talking to people who are doing interesting things. Our focus here, my focus is human focused experiences, healthcare, retail, CPG, all of it matters. And if anyone has questions about like why is a registered nurse talking about consumer insights, reach out to me directly. If you have a question for Joy or anything that she mentioned, I'm going to be updating this with all of the people that you mentioned. Hope that's not too grand. Hope that's okay. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, for those listening, please reach out to Joy. Check out Hit Like a Girl, a wealth of stories. And over how many episodes again?
Oh, well, there's 110 out, and we have like 40 more in the queue. So
wow. All right, my dear. Well, take care. Thank you again.
Yeah, this has been a pleasure. Thank you.